Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for The Walking Dead Season 9, Episode 15. Alright, so what an episode this week. First of all, I just want to let you guys know I did a reaction for the episode. Basically in that video, I 5 minutes after I finished watching, like right after I finished watching, as soon as I could, just, turned on the camera, gave some of my really initial thoughts of what happened, and mainly the reaction to, of course, the deaths, right? Spoiler warning, which was the deaths at the very end. So, if you want to go check that one out, it's about 5 minutes long, just my kind of initial thoughts and reaction. This one, of course, will be a more deep kind of dive into the episode. I'll go over a detailed recap here as usual, get to my rating, overall thoughts of the episode, and also what we might see in next week's finale, including Rick returning. There's been some stuff about that, so I'll briefly touch on that towards the end of the video, or towards the end of the review. But yeah, so yeah, we're here with the kind of full-length final review of the episode, which I thought was definitely still necessary, because this episode, I'm going to come out and say it, it's the best episode of Season 9 since Rick's departure episode, if you will call it, right? Since Rick's last episode, I think this is the best episode of The Walking Dead since then. And I would say the second best episode of Season 9. And so I really do want to talk about the other stuff outside of just the deaths and kind of the shock value at the end. But anyways, love to hear your guys' thoughts on this episode, and also your thoughts of those deaths. What did you think of those? What do you think of the choices they made? What do you think of how they kind of showed that, right? Really love to hear your thoughts on this one. And of course, if you like the review, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Would really appreciate it. Growing quite a bit lately, and do really appreciate that. So that would be awesome. But anyway, so let's get into the recap without any further ado of this episode. I'm going to try to go a little bit quicker with the beginning half of the recap, so I can mainly focus then on the last half of the episode was kind of where all the action happened. The rest of the episode was kind of setting that all up. And so I'm going to try to go a little bit quicker. So we start off the episode. First, I'm not going to talk about it too much because it wasn't that big in the grand scheme of things, but it did explain a little bit later how Alpha, of course, gets her disguise. But the couple at the hilltop goes, they're on their way to the fair. Alpha kind of catches them off guard, I guess. We don't actually see it happen, but we know that Alpha and maybe a couple Whisperers are able to get them, kill them, and then she kind of takes her scalp, including her hair, right, so that she can wear, because of course Alpha is bald. And then later on, of course, you see her in that blonde hair and the green dress. So that's how the episode opened, which I thought was okay. I think, it was a little bit far-fetched for us, to make us care about this couple within 2 minutes. But if that's not what they were going for, they were just going for explaining what happens later, I'll give it to them there. Okay, so the real start of the episode, though, is with Ezekiel. So he gives a speech at the fair, right? It was really great. They got a Shiva replica, right? Kind of perched up there on the kind of deck that's overlooking, or the patio, or whatever you want to call it, right? That's kind of overlooking all the rest of the people, or the crowd, right? That's assembled there now. And actually quite a lot of people at this fair, I will say. They did a good job in that. I mean, there's a ton of people at this fair at the Kingdom. When they showed all the booths and stuff, like many booths, and all the things set up. So that was really great. I feel like they really, kind of went all out with this fair and building that environment. So anyway, so Ezekiel mentions that they finally accomplished what Rick, Carl, and Paul Rovia and Jesus, right, wished for and strived for. And this was great. This is what we're seeing in Season 9, a lot of, mentions or kind of paying homage to earlier characters and situations and, episodes even. I mean, we've even got reference back to Season 1 stuff in Season 9, right? So it has been really great for that, and another example of it here, where he mentions Rick, Carl, and Jesus, and them wanting to unite, right? That was the big thing about them. So he says, quote, "We can finally unite, not against a common enemy, but as a common good," right? So that was a really great one, and that kind of really plays into this whole episode, right? That it ends up they are going to have to unite against a common enemy, but in this case, in the fair, their whole purpose was for a good. They didn't, even the Kingdom, they didn't know much about the Whisperers, and they, didn't know that they were an enemy quite yet, right? But all that has changed now. So then he says to let the fair of new beginnings begin. So that was great. So then we see Henry and crew arrive just as he finishes the speech, fashionably late, of course. We've seen Daryl being fashionably late a few times in the show. Anyways, so they arrive just as Carol and Magna's group are about to leave to look for them. So that was good timing, right? And, you know, you see, this has happened so much, even just in this half season. Like, the people... Some people go missing. They send a search party for them. They send a search party for the search party for them, right? And then they all end up getting in some, you know, big trouble with the Whisperers. That's kind of how it's went. So it was great that they didn't go out there again to look for them. But anyways, this was a really emotional scene here as Carol and Ezekiel meet Judith for the first time in years. Michonne says hello to Tara and Ezekiel, right? She hasn't seen them for a few years. So, of course, she saw Carol just recently at the hilltop, right? We saw that exchange. I think that was in episode 6 or 7, but I mean, you know, this is just, it's great, right? It's great. Even though we've only seen for, you know, about 7, 8 episodes now that they've been apart, you actually do feel that emotional attachment to it, even though it hasn't been that long for us. So that was really great. And then meeting Judith and her being grown up, that was just awesome. So, I really am expecting more stuff like that with Judith going forward. I mean, I really do like the character that they're building there. But anyways, so then Tara ruins the whole, you know, emotional, heartfelt scene, and she brings up Lydia being there right as she comes in with Daryl. A legitimate point, though, for sure. So then we see the leaders meet and decide that they will present a united front against the Whisperers, and they say an attack against one of them is an attack against all of them. So Oceanside, Hilltop Kingdom, and Alexandria kind of band together here and decide that they are going to take on the Whisperers, you know, together, right, and be united. Again, this goes back, we're not going to be united against common enemy, but literally the next scene, that is exactly what they're doing. They have a common enemy, and that is what's bringing them together. So it is kind of ironic there. But anyways, they also agree that Lydia will be granted asylum, but they do need to defend Hilltop, as they know that's where Alpha will attack first, right? That's where she, and the Whisperers, but that's where she, knows of, right? She doesn't know the Kingdom in Alexandria quite yet, or so we think at this point. Obviously she does, but that would be the first place she goes to look for Lydia and to attack, right? To shore up this new alliance, then, they all signed the Constitution, little document there that was drawn up by Michonne, and we saw that in a little flashback in a couple episodes ago. Really great build up to this point, I will say. It was very satisfying, and kind of an upbeat moment, right? Gives you kind of that hope, right, for the future. And then, of course, the episode ends like it does. That's just Walking Dead, right? Anytime a character or an event, leads to really, a lot of hope for the future, it all gets torn down, and that's what happens. Perfectly seen with the whole Negan introduction and the Saviors, right? I mean, hope, we're uniting all these communities. We just took down the one Savior outpost that we thought were all the Saviors, right? We can live in peace, and then boom, he bashes Abraham and Glenn's head in. So, it is what it is, and that's just what keeps happening. But it was a great little scene there. Also, I do want to mention the Oceanside leader is the young girl that we saw. She was the one who flipped off Tara there, if you remember back at the Oceanside in Season 8. And she has grown up now, and she's the leader. So that was really interesting. I still don't understand why this episode is the first time that we've even seen the Oceanside since the time skip. I thought they would be involved in the Scars storyline, that they'd all be dead by now, but somehow they're still alive. I still don't quite understand the whole, way that they're uniting with them. Because remember, the Oceanside community itself is located way far away from the Kingdom and Alexandria and Hilltop, and even those three are really kind of far away too. I mean, you can't just walk over to the one of them, right? And so they're so far away, so I don't understand why they, I get it for the, symbolism of everyone coming together, but to be real, I don't think that they would be able to do much for the other communities, and that they're just so far away. It would take a while for them to even just get there. I mean, we saw that with All Out War, right? They came in the very last moment and helped out the Hilltop. So, anyways, there you go. But yeah, really great scene there for the Constitution stuff. So we see that Daryl, Magna, Carol, Michonne, and others decide to leave to defend the hilltop. So that's where they're now shifting their focus, where they're going to go to the hilltop because they know that's the first place Whispers will attack, and they have now decided to keep Lydia, right? And so now they have to defend it, right? So they only send a few, though, not to cause any fear among the crowd at the fair, and this was seen with Ezekiel, who wanted to go, but obviously him leaving the fair would obviously, spark some kind of tension, maybe worry among the people at the fair. Like, why is he leaving, right? Like, something must be serious, right? If the king's leaving. And so for that reason, Henry and Ezekiel say goodbye to Carol. They will stay back at the fair along with Lydia as well. And then Carol and Daryl say goodbye as well. That was a nice scene. Then Daryl says goodbye to Connie, tells her to look after his dog. I think they are setting up something between Connie and Daryl going forward. Just way too many subtle things going on. But anyway, so that's what it is. So, Henry and Ezekiel say goodbye to Carol. That was nice. Carol and Daryl saying goodbye. And then the group is off. So they're just going to defend the hilltop for a few days, and then they will come back. I'm not sure how long this fair was supposed to be. Probably, a few days, I'm guessing, trade fair, so a few days. But yeah, hopefully they would be back by the time the fair was still going on. So anyways, so things kind of get really into motion here really quickly, in the turn of events here. So the group meets up with the highwaymen along the path in the forest, right? The leader leads them to the basically the site of the attack with the couple that we saw before from the intro, as I mentioned, and they guessed that it was the Whisperers, right? They're like, well, it doesn't look like dead people did this, but it was the Masked, and you do see a lot of them calling them Masked. Of course, I don't think we've heard Whispers at all yet from our Survivor group, but I don't think so. But anyways, they kind of refer to them as the Masked ones or the Undead. We were getting some names, right? That's just the same with all these groups having different names for the Walkers, right? Whispers, Guardians, Walkers, Governors, Biters, all that stuff, right? So that is what it is. So Daryl, Michonne, and Carol then split up from the rest of the group there in order to track the bodies that were being dragged on the ground there by the Whisperers. And so they say that they're going to track them, and then the rest of the group head to Hilltop, right? And we'll meet you there, right? We're going to try to find where these bodies are or who was responsible for it. And of course, the whole thing is just a big trap, right? The whole thing is a trap. The tracks lead right into this place, which is the new camp of the Whisperers, we find out, right? So yeah, the rest of the people go back to Hilltop, make sure they are safe there. And you know what? I also thought of this too, like every single situation that something bad has to happen, they always split up in the show, I swear. I mean, just in the season 9 mid-season finale, it was like they split up at the worst time. Like Daryl stays behind, they split up, and then of course all that stuff happens at the graveyard, and it's like it's just repetitive at this point, but they just never learn, right? They always split up, and it's if they had the whole group, I mean, they had like 10 of them plus the couple highwaymen guys. So the 10 of them probably could have done a lot more damage against the Whisperers when they went into that trap. But it is what it is. So Yumiko then decides to go with Daryl and them instead. She kisses Magna goodbye. I didn't know this, but I guess that means they're together. I wasn't sure, and I forget the comic book material and how, that dynamic with Mag. I forget, pretty much all of Magna's group. I just remembered the Magna character a little bit. And yeah, so I'm not sure, but it looks like they're setting that up that they're together, and maybe we were already supposed to know that, but to me, I kind of just found out there. But anyways, so the four of them, right? So we got Yumiko, Carol, Daryl, and Michonne. Pretty much, that those three are our biggest characters right now in the show. And then you add Yumiko into the mix as well. And she's a pretty good fighter. I would say she's the best fighter out of Magna's group, right? So you got four strong fighters going, right? So suddenly, as they find blood on the ground, and they walk into this forest, walkers begin to emerge from the trees, and quickly they are surrounded by all these walkers coming at them, and we're talking like dozens, right? I mean, there's a ton of them, right? So they're able to slash and slice their way out of it. They're able to kill all the walkers around them, taking care of all of them pretty fast too, right? And then they try going back to the road as quick as they can, but not before the Whisperers show up and surround them with knives. Nowhere to go, right? So that was a really great scene, how the Whisperers kind of send in their attack dogs, right? Which are the walkers at this point, to kind of basically, you know, kind of make them weak, right? And just kind of then be able to surprise them when they came out, right? Because if they just came out with all those walkers, you know, they probably would have killed some Whisperers there. They probably would have been able to get some before they, you know, got kind of knocked out or something like that from Beta or something like that. But, you know, anyway, so it was just a really cool kind of to see how the Whisperers actually use these walkers as like a tactic to fight and to, you know, trap people. It was really cool. So anyways, nowhere to go. They're surrounded by the Whisperers, and then Beta comes out to the surprise of Daryl. That face on like the face Daryl made there was just incredible, right? He's like, how is this guy still alive, right? Like, I threw him down an elevator shaft. And of course, we know Beta is still alive. So he says, drop them. I won't ask twice. And they listen, right? They drop their weapons right away. And then he goes to Daryl directly. And he says, you just had to give me the girl. No one else had to die. And now that deal is done. So crazy stuff. And of course, we know now that they've killed 10 more people, right, in Retribution. And he's right. I mean, they go to that apartment building and he just gives him Lydia. You know, it would have been the end of it, right? And the Whisperers probably wouldn't even have killed them. Even though, we got to remember, the survivors are not innocent in this. Now, this doesn't justify at all what the Whisperers did in putting heads on stakes and stuff in this episode. But we got to remember, I mean, the same thing happened with the Saviors and the survivors. Like, they go in, they kill like 20 to 30 people in that outpost for the Saviors. I'm brutally killing some of them in their sleep and stuff like that. And in this case, they've already killed like a dozen, maybe 20 Whisperers at this point. In the kind of events that have led up to this. So it's not like they're innocent here, right? You know, they have done some damage to the Whisperers, and the Whisperers are kind of now just taking, you know, kind of a issue with it, right? And they're kind of getting their retribution. But anyways, so then we go back to the kingdom. Ezekiel and Henry waving goodbye. So we basically resume right where we left off with the group leaving back of the kingdom. Really like the way that they handled the different time, time. I wouldn't call it, you know, I don't know exactly how to kind of put this, right? But you know what I mean? Like, it was still the same time. It was just different places. So it wasn't really a flashback or a flash forward of any sort. But it was just kind of different, the different events in different places at the same time, right? Anyways, so then we see Jerry and his wife talking in the background. And this was awesome. So Henry and Ezekiel wave, right? They wave goodbye. And then we kind of shift to a scene with Jerry and his wife. And in the background of them talking is the woman who Alpha killed before. Or wait, it's Alpha wearing her skin, right? You know, holy shit, that was my thought there. That just was so eerie when you see that woman and you know she's dead, and you saw Alpha kind of cutting off her scalp before, so you know what that all means. And that was incredible the way they showed that. And it wasn't like they focused on it. It was just kind of in the background, right? If you weren't looking real closely, you may even have missed it. So it was really, really awesome, right? So this just shows, right, not just the skin of, you know, necessarily walkers, right, zombies, zombified people, but it's alive people too that she's just killed, and using their skin. So now it kind of changes things as well. And of course now they have an inside man, or an inside woman in this case, with Alpha in there. And of course I think there's a couple other Whisperers disguised as well, which I may have missed. Some people are saying that they saw a couple of disguised Whisperers with Alpha there, but that's also another case as well to explore. Maybe rewatching it. But anyways, a nice scene also here between Rosita and Eugene. I just want to mention off the top here, you know, making up a little bit, and that was a nice scene there. Rosita, you know, don't push it, right? That was awesome stuff with her and Eugene. So then Ezekiel comes over to talk to Alpha, who of course he doesn't recognize, but this was just so creepy. I really thought that this was a big tease to comic book readers who knew, right, who knew that Ezekiel, or thought they knew that Ezekiel was going to die as a result of these, heads on pikes situation. And of course, they switched it up in the show. But this was a really great kind of tease, right? So she says that she is Deborah from Alexandria and that she was surprised Michonne came, right? It seems like she knows a lot about them. Just in this scene, she knows Alexandria, she knows who Michonne is, the dynamics of everything, probably by hearing other people talking about it, right? So then that she says that she wants to meet the queen. She wants to meet Carol. Crazy stuff. I have a feeling that they're going to meet shortly, especially after Henry, but it is what it is. So she has to go to the sweater booths, and she says, I want to be ready, because I have a feeling it's going to be a hard winter. Damn, right? Because we all know, or at least I knew, right? Going in, I'm like, okay, I know what this is coming to. And now they're talking about Ezekiel. Like, I just thought for sure, okay, Ezekiel's dead at this point. But they did throw us a curve. So Ezekiel then takes her with them. Says that he has just the thing. Anyways, that was great. So then we see their movie starts. Everyone seems to be enjoying themselves. Almost everyone at the fair, by the way, is at this movie, right? So that is a big portion of this and explains how Alpha and the Whisperers were able to take these people without anyone noticing right away, right? Almost everyone is at this theater watching the movie, right? So it really creates a big diversion, and including Lydia. Lydia is there too, at the theater, until Alpha comes in and sits beside her. Before she does anything, Alpha puts, shushes her up a little bit, and, that gave me chills, man, to see Alpha come in the Survivor environment. Like, it's just crazy to think about. And it was crazy. So, Lydia, of course, recognized it right away. She like gets frantic, right? Very anxious. And that was pretty crazy to see her mom. So, and also that gives us a little hint of what's about to happen, right? That she's able to infiltrate them that much, that she's able to come into the theater and just sit down. So, anyways, so then we see Alpha comes to Daryl and the others in the forest. So now we're back here. Tells her that Lydia's been granted, Daryl says, tells her that Lydia's been granted asylum and that they will retaliate if she tries taking her back. Alpha says that her daughter doesn't matter to her anymore and that their aggression against her group needs to stop, right? I think she said it a little bit differently, but essentially that's what she's echoing. She's saying, this whole thing of like, oh, we'll destroy you, we'll kill you and all that needs to stop, right? And then she takes Daryl to show him the leverage that they have, right? They're not just, obviously they don't have guns. That's a big thing in this, right? The survivors have machine guns. If you really think about it, they could go into the forest where the Whisperers are camping out and literally mow them down. Probably take, including Alpha and Beta, probably take them down within, a minute, 30 seconds. Honestly, they go with a few of them and they shoot them all. But the whole big part of this is that Alpha shows him their leverage, and it is insane leverage here at this point. So tells Daryl to come with her. By morning, she leads him to a quarry filled with thousands and thousands of walkers. Biggest herd we've ever seen in the show, by far. No Way Out, that herd was massive, but this is bigger, way bigger. This is incredible. This also goes back to the scene back in the Season 8 finale where we saw that huge herd there down from the hill where Rick and them were seeing it. This was probably the Whisperers' herd, right? So it's crazy to see, but this is their herd, and they can basically let them free. They can release them whenever they want, right? And it's just incredible. So she says, the only reason your friends are alive is because I let you live, right? Because they take care of the walkers, and they keep them in this quarry so that they don't get out, which is insane. And also, I love this because it explains so much of how even since back to Season 5, how the survivors have been able to survive and not been that affected, except for No Way Out, have been that affected by walkers, coming up against their gates and their walls, right? It just explains so much. So I really did enjoy this. So Alpha says she doesn't want anything they have in return, and that their way of life is how the world the Whisperer's way of life is how the world should be now, right? She says they are living the wrong way. She says she is an alpha and that she must assert herself in order to prevent chaos among her group. So we get a few little different discussion points here. And then Daryl says, what did you do, right? What did you do to assert yourself as an alpha? And she says, tell your friends back at the camp the next time they cross into our land, basically our herd will cross into their, or our horde will cross into theirs. So crazy stuff, right? So she lays out her territory to Daryl and says that she has marked the borderline for them and that they can see it when they leave. Wow, right? So then Daryl says, what is that supposed to mean, right? And she says, you'll see it as you leave, go, right? You know, leave, we're letting you go free. You now go and check out that borderline, right? So Daryl asks if she killed Lydia, and then we see the little scene between her and Lydia play out, how Lydia tells her to leave, and Alpha basically abandons her, and basically, you know, sees her as a lost cause, right? She's not willing to adapt to the Whisperer way of life, Alpha's way of life, and so she basically abandons her. She is no longer her daughter, right? And Alpha says, I don't think you can protect my daughter, but I hope I'm wrong. And Daryl says, you are. So it really seems like Daryl's kind of taken Lydia under his wing here, and that's how it's going to go in the future, especially with Henry gone now as well. So for sure. But anyways, a really great kind of intense scene there. Of course, Alpha's a shotgun too. So, you know, one wrong move for Daryl, he could have ended up in that big pit. So, you know, really, really intense there. But anyways, then we see Alpha back at the camp begins crying about Lydia. So she does have emotion. She is human, right? So we get a little spark of that. Then Beta leaves to leave her alone, basically, after she tells him to leave, right? Because she's crying, right? She's actually crying, or she's in tears, right? And then another Whisperer walks by as she's crying. She tells you, she motions him, come over here, right? And she just brutally kills him, right? Because she can't let anyone see her being weak, right? It's the whole part of being an alpha, right? That she just talked about in the last scene, of nobody can see her weak, right? She always needs to assert herself, and letting this Whisperer go, seeing that, could cause huge problems in the future. And so she just brutally kills this guy. Crazy scene there. I thought it was important. Alright, now let's get to the meat of it, right? Daryl and the others, on their way back through the forest, after being released, they stumble upon Sadiq, who's tied up, sitting up against the tree, with his hands tied and his, mouth, kind of a cloth over his mouth there. He points to the hill, right? He just points to the hill. No words come out. He is just, completely scared. He's bloodied. His face is all bloodied up. He looks kind of injured. Just a really kind of frantic situation, right? So all he can do is point to the hill. They come up the hill, and they see the heads on pikes along the borderline. So crazy stuff, right? Right, they get closer, and you just see the shock. Right, you just see the shock on their faces of this, and of course, like right when they see it, they don't know who's up there or what exactly this is. But as they get closer and closer, right, they start to see who the people are and what this is all about. Like that, these are human heads on pikes, right? So crazy stuff here. That they come up this hill and that they see this, just insane, right? Okay, so quickly the man who died. So the highwayman leader, another highwayman guy, DJ from the hilltop is there, with the other group that were heading back to the hilltop. So those three, Frankie, who apparently was Negan's former wife. I had to look that one up. I had no idea who she was. Tammy Rose, of course, who was in it, and that was a big surprise. I really felt like that was going to happen. We got Addie, who was the girl who talked to Henry, Rodney, another teenager, and then we get to the big three, which is Enid, Tara, Henry. Holy shit. I mean, this is crazy. Of course, I went over this in my reaction, so I'm not going to repeat myself too much, but Carol and Daryl broken, right? Just broken. Well, mainly Carol, but Daryl also just broken. I mean, all of them, Michonne as well, because these are such impactful characters for specifically those set of characters, right? For Carol, I mean, Henry is massively impactful. You know, Tara, Enid, both impactful for all of them, right? These have been characters that have been in the show since season 6 and season 4 respectively. So, you know, it's incredible, right? So then Daryl holds Carol back, says, "Look at me," right? "Don't look." That was insane, man. It's so emotional. And it really reminded me, of course, a lot of people were saying how Daryl held held Carol back in season 2, right, when Sophia comes out of the barn. Yeah, really similar to that. So anyways, crazy scene there. Really crazy scene. But yeah, so I'll talk about the decisions for the heads in just a little bit, but let's finish up. So then we end up with the episode, Siddiq giving the speech back to the kingdom, explains how they fought back in the final moments together. And then we basically see, right, a little bit of that kind of replayed. Alpha wanted to keep him alive to tell them and scare them, but instead he says that he wants to tell a different story. He says we need to honor them, which of course plays back to the whole, you know, thing of Carl letting Siddiq live, you know, and him dying. So that was really great. And of course, that's the name of Carl's last episode. He doesn't want this to break them apart again. He wants it to bring them together, right? He says that's exactly what the Whisperers wanted. They want this to basically, you know, bring us kind of apart again, right? And instead of bringing us together, they want to fragment the group and bring us, and further divide us. But he says that's not what this is going to do, right? And so he's basically, he's basically saying, you know, I'm not doing what Alpha wanted me to do, right? I'm gonna tell a different story, and it's really great. A lot of people have speculated on, is this actually what happened? I don't know. That's a really good question. Is he actually just making this all up in order to, you know, present this type of theme in a story that he wants? I don't know. I'm not sure we'll ever find out, but you know, it is what it is. But anyways, my question is, was it taking a place a little bit of time after? Because it really doesn't look like, I mean, Carol is kind of in shock, it looks like still. Lydia was not that emotional. It looked like it had been at least a week or two after the whole Pike incident. And I don't understand that. But anyway, so then we see the very end of the episode, Daryl and Lydia go to the stakes again, where Henry's head was, right? All the heads are gone at this point, but the stakes are still there. Lydia places down the H wooden symbol, which started off the episode, on Henry's kind of spot there on the stake, and snow starts to fall, which is the storm coming next week. So that is the end of the episode there. Really great way to wrap it up. And of course, we're going to see Winter coming to The Walking Dead next episode. Alright guys, so my rating for this episode, I'm going to give it a 4.7 out of 5. Yeah, this was hard because originally watching it, right, you get that shock factor, the whole, like, the last, I would say, the extended part of the episode, like the last 25 minutes of the runtime, so not the actual episode, but the last 25 minutes of the, you know, 9 to 10:25 block, were just, like, you know, I was at the edge of my chair, right, you know, heart beating, right, you know, it was crazy. But then if you look back a little bit on the rest of the episode, not actually a lot of stuff happened up until that point. So this was a hard one to evaluate, but I'm going to give it, yeah, a 4.7 out of 5. I still believe this is the best episode since Rick's final episode, and it's the second best of season 9. I think that we can say that for sure. I don't know what comes close. I really like Guardians, actually. So maybe that would be my third best episode, or maybe the season 9 episode 8, right? Maybe that's my third. But anyways, we've had a good second half of season 9. I feel like second half is much stronger, obviously outside of Rick's final episode. The first half was kind of really disjointed, especially because of the 6-year time jump within a half season. You know, unheard of, right? But anyways, I really do like the second half a little bit better, and I feel like this is definitely the best of the second half, at least. I think we can say that for sure. So yeah, so it is what it is. Shocking and chilling, right, of course. Just an insane event here at the end of the episode. Everything led up to this very well, I would say. The whole Constitution part, the fair coming together, I mean, this has been building since, you know, season 9, episode 9 even, maybe before that. And then the Whispers kind of seeking retribution, the whole Lydia storyline. So, you know what? They did a really good job of setting this up and building to this point where we, you know, had emotional connections to these characters. and these events actually made sense, right? Like, you know, it was logical that these would happen in the course of events. So that was really great. The Pikes event handled as well, you know, I mean, I think they were handled well, including the death choices. You know, again, they could have gone with Ezekiel and Rosita. I mean, a lot of people were expecting that, comic book readers, because they died in the comic books. But I like that they twisted it up a little bit. You know, they still killed Glenn in you know, the Negan bashing of, you know, heads in season 7 premiere. But they also killed Abraham. So they always have kind of twisted up these big events usually. And you know what? I like it. You know, obviously, I hate to see Enid, Tara, and Henry go. You know, a couple of the rest of the ones too. But I think that, you know, it was a good choice to twist it around a little bit, right? My one big major gripe though with this episode is the ending. To me, to me it's like, why not end the episode on the heads? You know, that whole Sadiq thing at the end is something that you could have as the intro for next episode, and then even maybe do like a little bit of time skip, and then we're skipping into winter when after the intro plays for next episode. So I really didn't like it. I felt like it really took away from the intensity and like the pacing, right, of that ending. And then all of a sudden we came back from commercial and it was like, you know, I don't know that we needed that in this episode. I felt like it would have been much more impactful to show those heads on the stakes and that reaction from Carol, Daryl, and the others, and just end it there. Really didn't enjoy this last part, and I felt like, I mean, Lydia, she didn't even look that emotional over Henry, and Carol, I mean, she was maybe in shock, you could argue, but she didn't look very emotional. So, you know, I don't know. I didn't love it. I didn't love the ending part. I really felt like that maybe should have been carried over into next episode. And again, I mean, Sadiq might be lying about that whole thing, so it's interesting. But we do see it though, so I don't know. Maybe they're just showing us kind of Sadiq's imagination of the events, or the actual events. I don't know that we'll ever find out, to be honest. So. It is what it is. But yeah, the ending was my only big thing. My other big thing that I would say is Henry. You know, it was a good twist. It was crazy. I didn't see that one coming. Enid and Tara, like, you can kind of expect them. But Tara even, I mean, that was a big death, too. She's been in the show since season 4. She'll be missed. But Henry, it's like, they've been building up Henry and Lydia's storyline the whole second half of season 9. And then they end up just killing him here. So, you know what, I was happy with the death because it's very impactful, and we're going to see those impacts, especially with Carol, I think, and it's going to help her character arc going forward in season 10 for sure. But I don't know. I mean, why did they spend all this time building up that storyline, and then we don't even necessarily see Lydia react to it even, really? I mean, you know, do we? Not really. And maybe that's going forward. We'll see that. But, you know, I just felt like it was kind of, they could have, if they went with Henry's death, they could have shown more, right? Show more of the impacts and kind of the influence that had on the story. Since they spent the last, you know, 7 episodes building that story. So to me, it was a little bit disappointing in that fact. And also, of course, now who's going to get Carl's part, right, for the rest of the Whisperer War arc compared to the comics. So that's another thing that we'll have to see in whether they keep going with that, they get a new character to play that, or what happens. But anyways, it is what it is there. I know a lot of people hated Henry, so, you know, a lot of people are very happy with that one. All right, let's end things off here with favorite character. I got to go with Tara Chambers, or Tara, right, played by Alana Masterson. Probably the biggest death, just because she's been in the show the longest and she's been kind of the most significant character, leader of the Hilltop, right? I did feel like it was her time to go. It's probably been her time to go for a while. She's kind of been one of these characters that didn't always fit in with the kind of theme of it, and she was always just kind of a unrealistic character, if you will, always trying to like kind of poke fun, make jokes, and never really took things too seriously. And, you know, I feel like that's a little bit of a problem. But I did really love Alana Masterson. She was really great in the show. I'm hoping that maybe she'll come back for like a flashback or something like that in the future. She actually was really great. But yeah, I mean, you know, was her character cut short? Maybe. Maybe she could have had a better arc going forward with the whole leader of the Hilltop thing, but, you know, I think it was her time, and it was an impactful death, so it is what it is. But anyways, Tara Chambers going to be missed, along with Enid. Enid was really, you know, yeah, that was a crazy one, too, for sure. And the reaction of Alden, right, when they're at the fair looking for all of them, and Enid's not there, that was really impactful. So, anyways, thanks for watching, guys, my review here for the episode. Thanks so much also for the support on the channel and these Walking Dead reviews. Really do appreciate it as always. And yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. What were your thoughts on the deaths and how they kind of were able to do it? And, you know, was it too gruesome? Was it just enough? How do you like the ending of the episode? Love to hear your guys' thoughts, of course, on that one. But anyways, guys, the finale will be next week. Probably not any big deaths since we had this huge episode this week, but it should still be a good one. And possibly Rick returning. I've heard some stuff about that with Eugene contacting them maybe with the radio transmission. I heard a couple things, but you know, it all is just rumors now and we'll have to see. But anyways, that'll do it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching this one, and I'll see you next week for the Walking Dead Season 9 finale episode. Should be a good one.
The devil has come to carry me home, lay me at the bottom of the river.